You guys subbed out one really good veteran cornerback for another this offseason. What are just some of the differences, the similarities between DJ and Carlton?
I guess the similarities both are good pros. Like they understand the NFL. They understand what they're getting themselves to. Both of them are really good man corners. The differences is one is 6'2" and one is 5'10", so that's the only big difference. But both are tremendous football players, really good pros. I'm really looking forward to working with DJ.
Does DJ know he's not 6'2"? Because he seems like
I doubt it. He better think he's the tallest corner in the room every time he goes in, but you don't make it this long if you don't have that mindset, and he has it. He's been a really good player his entire career in the league. So.
Yeah, we say a player takes his biggest leap from year one to year two, and just how have you seen Terrion come back this spring, and just some expectations for him going into what's expected to be kind of a big jump of a year for him?
I think any expectation of any time you get a chance to have as many reps as he had, it helps you. The only way you can get better is to get a chance to rep. And he understands how they're attacking him, and he found out about himself. Like, what do I do best? How can I make those strengths more stronger? And then my weaknesses, what do I do now this offseason to make them better? And, just conversating throughout the process before he got back. And then she grabbed me right now. We was in the office watching tape just now. So he is trying to be the best player he can be, and that's what it takes. Like, you have to work on your craft. You have to find out how you can get better in the offseason, and he's working on it.
I imagine Ennis was incredibly frustrated with just the stop-start nature of his rookie year. I think we all understand that he was on the verge of getting an opportunity to start there really early in the season. How do you see the year two? I mean, is he going to be right back in that mix to scrapping for a
Oh yeah, well, yeah. The thing I do like about how he came back was just his mindset. Like you can tell that he understood what went wrong last year, and some things that you can't control are injuries. And for him, it's just now how can I be stronger? What did I do last year? Like being a rookie, training for the combine and doing all that. Now I get to really focus on myself and my craft a little bit more because you don't have to worry about those things. But he understands, and in our room, it's about competition anyway. You know what I'm saying? But we don't care who gets a rep. A rep don't care who get it at this time of year, but when you get it, you better make sure you're doing the right things, and that's our room anyway. Like you're going to have to prove it. You better come in here ready to compete, and I think we got a lot of good guys in there to go compete.
Do you still see him as both inside and outside potentially?
Well, in this league, you only can travel with so many, but right now we're going to let him, focus outside. Let him go compete out there. Mikas did a really good job. We have Avante, who's another position flex type of person. So, and I think that'll help him as well.
Speaking of Amit, how impressed were you with what he was able to do now, the first year here in Detroit? What do you expect now, year two with him?
Oh yeah, just like we talked about, that was his first time really playing nickel full time, and to see him improve from the first week to the last week shows you the capability that he had even when he was at the Raiders. And he's just a pro. Love the way that he approached the game, love the way he came to meetings every day, and I loved his energy. Like, that's the one thing that he has that from day one, you knew he was going to be a guy that brought that energy every day, and he is a true pro, a true football player.
Back to Terrion for a sec. When you guys target those areas in this game where he can improve, what are one or two that stand out to you?
I think the biggest thing for me is tracking and locating the ball. I think as the season went, you saw some of the pass interferences go down, but our next step is how can we get the ball back to the offense? Like how can we transition from man to ball, from it being a PBU to an interception? And so that's some of the things that we talked about and some of the things that we're working on to see how we can improve it. Like when do I take a peek? When I'm in phase, go ahead and look. Like those type of things that now he understands and he can play a little bit more, have a little bit more freedom and go take a chance to go make some plays.
You had a lot of interceptions in your career, Deshea. It took you a few years to get the first. Terrion didn't get his first last year. Right. You knew that was gnawing at him. I mean, from your experience, what can you convey about being patient and not, taking unnecessary risks to get
I think the biggest thing is like, you know how it is. Once you touch it one time, it's gonna they come in bunches. But when you play man a lot of times your back is turned. And so therefore, a lot of times, you're not looking at the man. You're trying to go from transition from man to ball, which a lot of times doesn't go in your favor. But I just think for him, it's just that growth, being patient, that they'll come. And when they come, you got to create them other ways. But when they come, they'll come in bunches.
First couple months, man.
You know what? It's actually been as smooth as you could possibly ask. It's kind of been, so far, kind of a seamless transition, coming in, learning the scheme here and kind of fitting in with the staff. So, and now we're having interaction with the players, so it's been pretty smooth.
So long, why was this the right time, the right opportunity for you in Detroit?
You know what? It's funny. I had to sit there and think about it because as long as me and Todd work together at different spots, we've been together. But sometimes just as a coach, when it's time to, what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to move to keep your skills sharp, if that makes sense, Had a great experience there, but, the opportunity presented itself to come here and familiar with Dan and Shep and Shea and Corrao. It was just and you're kind of talking about a pretty talented team, too. So it was just a really great opportunity.
That talent, you're pairing a line with, a premier pass rusher, a former first-round pick in Marcus, second-round pick in Josh, Liam's a top defensive tackle. When you see that wealth of talent, how compelling is that as you're considering your options around the league?
Well, that had a lot to do with it. It's just a chance, as a coach, as long as I've been in this league, you kind of look for good opportunities and, you walking in with some talented guys and guys you kind of like to work with. And that had something to do with it. Then plus, the culture Coach Campbell's created here. And as a coach, you always want to learn. I got to where I was pretty familiar with Todd's system, the way he does things and everything. It was a great learning experience for me. Now to get the experience the way Dan leads the team and the meetings and everything, it's just a learning for me. I was telling somebody, as long as I've been in this league, you still can learn. When you get to the point where you think you know it all, that's when problems set in. So now I'm just kind of in a situation where I'm still learning the way we do things here, the way things, and it's, at the end of the day, it's still football. So, but it's just the way you do it and try to get the results on Sunday.
How's Aiden looking?
Actually, it's really good. Just kind of to see, I'm sitting here just imagining what this guy went through. What he worked on to get back in case they made it to the end last year, and then to see where he is right now is just, this guy is he's a true pro.
Obviously, medical, will determine everything, and I think both Dan and Brad have started indicating he'll be back, but how do you anticipate how much work does he need to get back to where he was on the field?
Well, the thing is, once we know for sure where he is and everything, that will dictate itself. But our thing is we'll do everything to make sure he's ready to go week one.
What did you know about David from your previous experience with him? And I guess even from a distance here these last few years, what have you seen about what he's built here?
Well, the thing when I remember him as a player is the exact same as I see him as a head coach. Tough, gritty, hard-nosed, blue-collar, just hard-working. And then, we were together in Dallas. I've watched him as a player, the tough, gritty. Then we were together at Miami, and I'm coaching defensive ends, and he was coaching tight ends, so we go against each other every day. So it was just like then in the NFC South going against each other all the time. It's just everything that you saw him as a player, as a position coach, it transferred to him being a head coach. He's the same guy, the way he coaches the players, talks to the players, communicate with the players, communicate with the staff. He's the same guy, only better.
You got all the talent coming back. You've also got a first-round pick and Tylee coming in the fold. Just what do you like about him, and how much of a bonus is that to this situation?
It really is. The thing is, I think after watching the cut-ups and the tape, what they went through last year with so many bodies in and out because of the injury situation, it's just good to see. We can't have enough depth. It just reiterates, they limit the league with 53 guys, but you can never have enough depth and enough quality depth to be able to get Tylee and mix in with the guys that already, that could only be a bonus.
You heard Brad about this. How do you feel about the depth that you have at the edge rush position right now? Do you have enough to survive?
Well, the thing is, right now, as we look at them and they running around, I told them I did a couple of drills the other day because I didn't really know them, so I'm trying to get to know them and this and that. But I see a lot of promising guys that will have great opportunity to step in.
Join a new organization, I guess. What are the steps you take to maybe get to know guys as people, learn how they learn, things of that nature?
Well, this is really what this time of the year is for, because a lot of those guys have been here since we walked in day one, and the players, the vets came back into the building and just kind of talking. You be someplace we all understand right now this is voluntary. But, I'm sitting here I walk in a meeting room with every chair filled. So, it's just like, hey, they don't really have to be here. So my hat goes off to them for that, and then just kind of know they trying to learn me, I'm trying to learn them. And, I'm coaching the guys that have played in a system longer than I've been coaching it. So they helping me too. So, but it's been good so far. So, it's like, one, I'm trying to do things and asking them questions. Like, it's easier for me to learn than for them to learn, because nobody's going to hit me on Sunday. So I'm trying to know, well, I say it this way, but y'all used to say it that way. I can learn it that way. And so it's all about them. At the end of the day, it's about the players. So one, I'm trying to make the transition from me coming in to them as easy as they can. That way they can play as fast as they can.
What do you think impressions of Calvin Shepard and his defense?
I'm sorry?
First impressions of Calvin and his defense.
You know what? Well, it's interesting for me, because I remember coaching Shep as a player, and to see him now running the meetings with the coaches, running the meeting with the player, is just the leaps and bounds. I always thought he was a smart player. To see the growth at him over the years, the way he runs our meetings, the structure of our defense, the way he talks to the player, is just, I'm really impressed. It's just the things, that we built upon, and the things and the openness. And, you kind of coming in and you're sitting down with a team that won 15 games last year. So the thing is, but the eagerness, everybody is still in there trying to learn. Can we do this better? Trying to do that better. That's impressive.
Kacy, one of the defensive ends of the team is expected to be counting on is Marcus Davenport. Just from your early time, what are you expecting from him if he's able to stay healthy all year?
That's the number one thing. And I talked to him about it, because that's the thing is, and I told him, well, matter of fact, the first meeting with him, I got to do everything to help him do that. This guy's a tremendous player. It's just, as you look at his career, it always been, he's this, he's that, then it's Andrew. If we can keep him healthy, I think this guy, this is another guy that stares me in the face every meeting room that doesn't have to be, what I'm saying? He's coming in here, working, and we just got to do what we can to get him through 16, 17 games and see what happens, because we think if he plays 17 plus games, we're going to like the results.
What can you do to help with that? Because a lot of that is just, bad luck.
Well, that's the thing is, it's some of the things he getting hurt is just freaky bad. Like, I'm sitting here watching the first few games before he got hurt, and he was playing dominant. And that, as I said, and sometimes just that's the way the cookie crumbles. But where I can help him, let me take some of them off of this. Let me do that. Maybe you got this. Let somebody else get that, and try to, because this guy's will be a big asset to the defense.
Kelvin is making now to coordinate. What were, I guess, the toughest parts about that for you? And do you have any advice for him as he makes that transition?
You know what? And I told him that joking going to the field, all the questions. You don't realize just as a front coach, boom, you got this question, boom, you got that. But as a coordinator, the front guy wants to do this, but you got to make sure it's okay with the linebacker coach who's going to be tied to the safety coach. And it's constant questions. It's like you said, as a front coach, sometimes you go in your office and you're in your office. As a coordinator, you go in your office and everybody coming to the door. So if they give a slot, well, it is always something. So, and then also you're the one that's standing up here when it don't go well. You know what I'm saying? So it's the thing is just seeing the growth with him. If anybody's ready for it, he is.
How long did it take you to get used to that in New York when that?
You know what? It was really good because of the relationship I had with Todd. I've been with him so long that I kind of knew what he wanted, how he wanted, and we thought alike. So, it's like if he was calling the game, I knew what he was going to call. If I was calling the game, he knew what I was going to call. It didn't really have to be any communication. 3rd and 8 right here in the midfield, he's calling this.
For Lingo this year, once he gets healthy,
Well, that's the thing is, the cut-ups and the plays that I see, you can't have enough interior rushers. You know what I'm saying? One, you want to keep guys fresh and stuff like that. So having him to mix in with that, it's just funny to see how camps fall out and kind of see what you got. Because every guy, you can go through every guy on this roster, interior-wise, this and that, and I can tell you this, he brings this, he brings that, he's bringing that. The key is going to be how we kind of mold it through at the end.
Going
I
off
want to ask about Ahmed. After acclimating, learning, getting into the playbook, for you, what's then the next step for him in his development?
Just continue to growth. You're talking about an impressive young man from, I have them introduce themselves and come in. You're talking about a guy been in the States 8 years, come in to learn English. and get drafted in the National Football League. That's impressive. You know, you learn hard enough to learn English, then you're going to learn football lingo, stunt, trap, drop. But he's hardworking. He takes a lot of notes and asks good questions and very energetic. He's like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, can't wait to get here. So, you know, so far it's been really positive.
Coach, you've seen teams build to a title, to a championship. What do you see in this building this time of year that shows you the hunger, the application, the commitment to getting to that ultimate goal?
You just said the same words I would have said. You know, when I saw the temp, I saw the same kind of things here. It's off season and everybody's here. So that's the same thing, you know, you're hungry because a lot of teams, you know, like we said, it's voluntary. But people are here because they want to be here and they know it's right there. And you kind of got to taste it last year, this and that. So now when you see that, you know, you got all the players buying in to one cause. That's the key to winning. Everybody buying in and try to stay healthy. You know, that's the key in this league.
You mentioned you like the depth a lot, but in your room you have players of kind of all experience levels for young guys, older guys. What do you like about the composition of that room and how they can maybe help each other grow?
Really good because you got some really, really true vets because I'm coming in, I'm trying to figure out who the leaders of the room, but then you got Hutch there, you got DJ Reader, you got Davenport, you got McNeil played a lot of it. You got several guys that played a lot of football. You got forgetting about Levi. You see what I'm saying? You got a lot of guys in that room. You got a good level of vet guys and you got a good stuff of long, energetic guys. So the mix there is perfect, I really think.
You've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of versatility in that room. Guys that can play a lot of different alignments inside and out. With your coaching philosophy, how do you view the value of versatility with your group?
We need a lot of versatility because one, we want to try to be as disruptive as we can be up front. So we want to be able to slug it out when we need to slug it out, shake and bake when we need to shake and bake, and we ain't opposed to dropping big guys too. So we got to be able to do it all. So we like that.
Whenever struck you as a guy that could one day become a coordinator when you had him as a player?
You know what? I would say yes. And when I think about it, then when you see the progression and you just see, it was about time. You knew it was time, and just the different coaches you've been around, from players to coaches, you see the growth. You know, you like, right now he's ready for the next step. And so far in all our meetings with the coaches, so far the offseason, then when the players came in, you know, he hadn't missed a beat. The way he lead the meetings with confidence and the players buy in and they believe in him, I think, you know, his time was now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. So nice to meet you.
2 all-pro caliber safeties. What's next for those guys?
They got to get better, find a way to get better. So, they definitely had a great year, but we're expecting even more from this year.
You, I guess, exit interviews, they're leaving the building.
Yep.
Assume you give both of them to work, things to work on. What was the big thing for each of those guys?
Well, it was more when they got back. So, because we like to go back, watch all the cut-ups. I mean, there were obviously some things that were in my mind, but it's always good to kind of go back, watch the whole year. And they've both been outstanding. We kind of make tapes for each guy and pull the critical things that they need to see, but also all the different techniques so they can go back and study themselves. So it's been pretty cool. Like, hey, BB, watch all your blitzes. I'll watch them, and then let's talk about it the next morning. Because I think when they watch it, instead of just telling them, I think you get more out of it, right? If they're seeing the same thing that you're seeing, instead of you just saying, hey, this is what I saw. You need to get better at this. They come back to you and say, hey, coach, I saw I was doing this. I agree. Let's work on it this way. I think that's a better chance to get better.
You guys as a coaching staff learned pretty quick last year how important depth was. Not so much maybe at your position. Those guys, played pretty much all year. I'm just curious when you look at it now, just where your depth is at that position.
At safety?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously lost Iffy and we gained Avonte Maddox. So Avonte will be an inside player similar to what he's done his whole career as far as a nickel safety body. That's what he's done at Philly for the years. And then after that, we got 5 young, unproven, hungry guys that there's one spot. Go earn it. And it's exciting, to see those guys compete. And obviously the OTAs, then the training camp practices, and they'll get the bulk of the work throughout the 4 preseason games. So we're waiting on one of them to pop. Hopefully 2 or 3 of them pop, and we end up in a great situation.
Jim, a lot of turnover on this coaching staff this offseason, but obviously the guy at the top remains the same. Just in your first year coaching underneath Dan, what did you learn about him? What did you come to appreciate the most?
Everybody talks about it, and to be honest, everywhere else I've been, it's just been a buzzword, but the culture aspect of things with Dan is incredible. And it's all football. There's no drama. If you don't love ball, you're not going to fit in here, whether you're a coach or a player. So, and that's who I kind of am as a person, so it's easy for me, and it's something that I've kind of sought after for most of my career. The only other guy that I felt like I've really been around that's been like that was Rex when I was in New York. But Dan knows what he wants. I think he does a good job in the interview process. I think he's not just looking for great football coaches, he's looking for great people. And I think he's brought in a bunch of really good football coaches, a lot of really good people. So it's exciting. You know, you get to work with some new guys, you hear some new things, some different perspectives, and it allows you to grow as a coach. It allows you to grow schematically. So I've enjoyed where we're at so far.
Jim, with Kirby, he obviously took his game to another level last year, but he was also one of the vets in that secondary. How did you see him grow from a leadership standpoint? I know you weren't here the year before, but maybe just over those couple months.
Well, leadership, you know, I think we talked about this some in my last press conference. You know, one of the things Curb did last year was he had all the guys over his house on Thursday nights just to kind of create some group camaraderie. And, you know, he paid for a chef so they could eat dinner and just so those guys could kind of hang out together. Just his leadership in the meeting room, you know, like, hey, make sure you write that down, or re-emphasize a coaching point that he might know for a player. That's hard on the grass. Or I didn't get that the first time around. So looking at a younger guy, hey, you get that? Like, coach, can you go over that again? Or, you know, he might ask questions that he knows the answers to that other guys might need to hear the answer again or in a different way. As far as on the grass, everybody talks about the ball production, which is obviously rare. But one of the things that I'm most proud of with him is I thought he did an unbelievable job in open field tackling last year. And it was even more impressive than I thought when I went back and watched the cut-ups. I mean, you're really looking for two things when you're known as a post safety. Obviously, a guy that can go get the ball and a guy that can erase mistakes when the ball pops. And I thought he did an outstanding job of that. And that was a huge point of emphasis for us coming off of his season 2 years ago to last year. And we worked it a lot at the end of practice, and it showed up on the field.
With Gio Manu last year, we saw a guy that had just unbelievable physical traits, and you knew with the level of competition that, you know, he was going to have some development before he was ready to contribute. I'm curious if Ian Kennelly kind of falls in that same ballpark. I mean, he is...
Who's the guy
Ian,
you said? No, who'd you say the first?
Oh, Gio Manu, the offensive
Okay,
player.
yep.
I mean, just traits I think any safety would love to have in terms of size and athleticism, but coming from Grand Valley is a pretty massive jump. You know, I'm curious your initial impressions and, you know, what's the ceiling with a guy with those kind of physical abilities?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the kid at all. And he came to local day and he crushed it. And I mean, not just, you know, the coach, like the DB coaches observed it. Phip ended up gravitating over. Dan ended up gravitating over. So we're like, who is this kid? And then we went back and we watched some of the tape, and some of the stuff we saw at the local day was showing up physical, you know, could run, could obviously track the ball. So we've been impressed with him. He's in a little bit of a blender right now mentally because of how much defense we've thrown at him and what he's used to at Grand Valley. But when we're in the position drills, you can see the athletic ability. You can see him track a ball. So he's a great developmental player right now that I'm hoping develops into a damn good player for us.
What are some of the qualities you're looking for? You mentioned maybe one spot for a couple guys competing there. What are some of the qualities you're looking for to fill that spot?
I think for us, number one is versatility. Okay, so last year and AG did a great job. If something happened and Brian Branch was out of the game or Kirby was out of the game, we had to immediately adjust the game plan based off of what Iffy's skill set might be or what Brandon Joseph's skill set might be. So in an ideal world, you're not going to get a backup safety, obviously, that can do all the things that Kirby and Brian Branch can do. But somebody who can play in the deep part of the field, somebody who can get down in the box and be physical and tackle in the run game. And then for us, where we're different with what Brian gives us, is the ability to play man coverage on tight ends and receivers, which is really, really rare. So that's a hard skill set to find. But we're going to ask our guys all through OTAs, training camp, and in the preseason games. We're going to ask our safeties to play man-to-man coverage on slot receivers, and we're going to see how they do.
Dan Jackson might be one of the least wordy draft picks you have. We didn't get a whole lot out of him in the two guys we talked to so far. I imagine you did know about him going into the draft, right?
Yeah, I did a full evaluation on him, did a Zoom interview with him. I met with him down at the Combine in Indy. It's a great story. It is, and he's a smart kid, and you know, we talk about grit around here. There's probably not a player that's kind of gone through more of that in his college career than this guy. I mean, stays at Georgia through 6 years, earns the right to start on that defense, plays really good for them around a bunch of guys. You know, he's first-round picks, and you know, so I'm excited about him. He was kind of the alpha in the back seven that did most of the communication. Very, very football smart. Got to make sure he's not thinking too much, because again, we've thrown a lot at him, and we've done that on purpose to kind of force some of these guys to sink or swim. But I've liked what he's shown out there so far in the week that we've had him.
You mentioned you know, Kirby's open field tackling, just catching your eye on the rewatch. I guess how often does that happen where something kind of catches your eye while you're, you know, reviewing tape of your own players?
As the season's going on, you mean? Yeah, well, like right away, you know, just throughout a game or as you're grading tape, you might, you know, you make little mental points to yourself, like, oh, okay, they're attacking us this way, or they're setting the protection this way. Maybe it's because you know, we got to do this to counter that. And you kind of have an idea, and then sometimes you think you're doing something good and you're disguising stuff well or whatever, and then you go back and you watch every time you were in quarters or every time you were in man-to-man coverage, and you watch it at, you know, and you try to do that during the season, but you don't always have time. You see things, right? You're not under a time constraint. You have more time to look at it and study it, and then you kind of go back. And so for the most part, you're good, but sometimes things are, you know, like Kirby's tackling. I knew it was good. I didn't know it was as good as it was. I mean, it's a cut up that I'll hold on to for the rest of my career, because every time the ball popped, Kirby got the guy on the ground. I don't know if he missed one. So.
What you thought about his progression last year and what you're expecting now?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of came onto the scene kind of late in training camp, made some plays in the preseason. Kind of was bounced back and forth on the roster, up on special teams, down. Didn't get much playing time on defense, but again, he's one of those five that are fighting for a spot, and we got five guys fighting for their NFL lives. So it's going to be highly competitive. He's one of those guys. So I'm just looking to see where his jump goes, you know, year two, because usually as a football player, that's your biggest jump in the NFL, year one to year two.
Brian, it felt like every couple of weeks he was kind of catching a fine for maybe the lowering of the helmet or just the hits. I'm sure that's something that he doesn't want to have happen this year. So I guess, have you talked about that at all? Or are you trying to coach that out of him without maybe taking away his aggression? Or I guess just what conversations have you had around?
I have, and Jim got a custom bag ordered for me. It's about that high off the ground. And we're going to live on that post-practice so I can help him save some of his money. But no, I mean, it's not anything. He's not trying to hurt guys out there. I mean, a lot of times, as you guys know, those are bang plays. And, you know, if I'm a DB, you know, I have my aiming point on where I'm about to strike a guy. And then if a guy catches and then his aiming point drops, it ends up helmet to helmet or shoulder to helmet or shoulder to neck. And that stuff's a lot easier to coach in slow motion than it is at full speed. So, because, I mean, you know, DBs, the answer is, oh, yeah, just go low every time. Now you're hurting guys. So we'll work it. I did. That's a real thing. Tim got that bag for me, so we're going to use it. We'll see if BB can punch a hole in it by the end of the season. So all good? All right, guys, have a great weekend.
Just to get the promotion, you know, to be running your own room now, what does that mean to you?
I'm super excited for the opportunity. I'm super grateful for Dan, Ship, for those guys thinking that much of me to feel like I'm ready. You know, some people think I'm relatively young or whatnot, but, you know, I've worked extremely hard since I've started coaching to prepare myself for this moment, you know. Day in, day out, week in, week out, you know, it's a 24/7, 365-day grind, you know, to set myself up for this opportunity and moment right now.
Most of us remember you as a player. It wasn't all that long ago. When did you know you wanted to go into coaching, and can you walk us through how that came about?
So it's funny, right? I feel like all of my coaches from growing up, by the time I started playing college ball, they thought that my man, very intelligent. One day you could see yourself coaching one day or whatever, and we were going through training camp in 2022, and I remember AG was telling me, like, man, you're gonna be a coach one day, whatever, blah blah blah. I didn't know that my playing days was slowly coming to an end. But after I got released, I met with Dan, Brad, AG, and they gave me the opportunity. Told me, like, hey man, if there's not any serious interest from teams out there, man, we think it's you bring value to this coaching staff and, helping the players out. And that time during training camp, I was more of a backup. And at that point, we had drafted Malcolm. D. Barnes was going into year 2. And at that point, I kind of like felt like a older brother or veteran, who were helping those guys out or, putting them on game about, maybe things that I saw. Because obviously I was in year 5 at the time. So it's been a cool transition.
Was that hard to hear, like, hey, maybe your career is done, but we want you? Was it refreshing to hear? I don't know, how'd you sort of...
No, it wasn't hard at all. I mean, I think at that point, tell people, man, every box that any football player could want, I've checked, from playing in Alabama, winning national championships, you get drafted, you make it to the league, you made plays in the league. So, I mean, I've checked all my boxes, and, one thing, I'm a big, like, making a difference in other people's lives. So what better opportunity where now, I want to be the coach maybe that I never had, or, I feel like I got a very unique perspective where, I've been in the locker room where some of these guys I played with, and now, okay, I can see both sides of it and understand what they need and what they don't need.
What's one or two things you picked up in your talks with AG that'll help you now early in your coaching journey?
Oh, man. It's AG, man, he's so great. I think one thing that I've learned is poise from him. One thing about AG, nothing could never get under his skin or nothing could never crack him. So whether if it was somebody blowing an assignment or it was maybe somebody's not on the same page, he was a super even keel guy. And, I think that stands out a lot about him. And I think another thing is a very people's person, and that's something that I think that's so important. He's probably an even better person and a better man than he is actually a coach. So that's two big things I really learned from him.
When everything clicked for you as a coach, like when did you feel it start to click? Like, oh, there's a path. There's a real path.
If you want to be honest, it may be actually when I was my senior year of college, right? Broke my kneecap, was out for the season. What was that LSU game? Jeremy Pruitt had just taken the job at Tennessee, getting ready for the playoff game. And so Pruitt's on the road recruiting and stuff like that. And, okay, we have a GA or whatever. And I am hopping around, basically being like the linebacker coach for the guys who I was just suiting up with then. I thought it was, kind of cool or whatever. I mean, obviously, you think that you're going to play 10 years in the league and, sign a $100 million contract, but that's not the case. But I think it was really training camp in 2022 when you're a backup and, you're helping the guys that, maybe that you're competing with, but they're playing in front of you. But, you want for the common goal of the team is to win. You want to make sure that they're ready to go and better off.
When you look at this roster, I mean, do you see guys that have kind of that same mindset that, you could see them coaching in the league someday?
I mean, I kind of really don't look at it, honestly. But I think one thing, we learned a lot from last year and with all the injuries and stuff like that, how important depth is, and that's something I'm consistently preaching, to the room to where, I mean, hey, we got to be just as good from the first guy all the way down to the last guy, and that's something that as a coach, you want to prepare guys, and that's what we are called the coach for, so that way the players can think as much as they do as a coach as possible.
Where did you see him grow the most last year, and what does the next step for him look like?
I saw Jack has grown a lot from year 1 to year 2. You see maybe less thinking out there. The game is slowing down for him. And now even going from year 2 to year 3, when you watch the self-scout and stuff like that, you see him really taking that next step. Like I said, big thing is like thinking, I think from coming from college to the pros, obviously college, their offenses are a little different. The field's different. Concepts are differently. So now he's getting his feet under him. I think the first thing is I know Jackson, he's a freaking works extremely hard, a big student of the game, And so now that we're sitting back and we're seeing things slowing down, that's from a pass coverage perspective or even that's from a run fit wise where I can see him taking the next steps now like already in the offseason from the questions he's asking, even going to the practice field. You can see that, okay, things are slowing down tremendously for him.
You just mentioned the depth in your room. You have a lot of players in there who have contributed at this level. How would you just describe the football acumen that's in your position room right now?
Ask that question one more time.
Just with having so many players in your room who have contributed at this level, what's the football IQ in that room right now?
I think, having a lot of guys that played a lot of ball, I think it's a great thing because one, I think when you have one, it elevates competition, right? And I think that's where it's a game. Football is a game of competition. So one, okay, everybody's going to raise their level because, okay, they know the next man is going to force them to be better because, okay, if they're not doing their job or they're not playing at an extremely high level, okay, this next guy, he can do it just as much, And if anything, right, I think sometimes it can preserve guys' body. It's great also because sometimes maybe you may not be in the game, but you know what? You're able to learn from somebody else who's in the game, make a mistake to make sure that you don't make the same mistake.
I've been asked this question a couple of times. I figured I should ask you. Is Alex here in the spring right now?
Enzo, he's you're talking about a four-year captain, a leader on the team, got so much respect for the guy. Man, I'm just excited to where he is and, moving forward as he comes into his this next year, this season. I'm expecting a big season for him.
Is he taking part in the spring workouts right now?
There's no comment on that. I think you could talk to Coach Campbell about I'm not in charge of the answering those type of questions.
What's it been like having Shaun Choice in the building? I don't know if you knew him before, but just getting to know him. He said he and Shep might come to blows in training camp on the field. He's so competitive. Just what's it been like having his energy, his presence around?
Oh, it's been great. T. Choice, he's actually been a guy who I feel like I've known from a distance for quite some time. Just because of being around Shep. Him and Shep are really good friends. And, every day, 6 o'clock in the morning, he got the juice, Him, Bone, where your juice at? He's the same guy every single day. So I'm super ecstatic, to have him on the roster, and I know that he's going to do a great job with the running backs. And I know his linebackers going to have to come ready to work every day at practice because I know he's going to make sure those guys are ready to go.
Coach under Shep for the last few years, how has that helped your transition, maybe just knowing what he wants, how he teaches and things like that?
This has helped me out tremendously. I think that he's probably one of the better coaches that I had a chance to play for as a player. And then, okay, once you start working with him and, okay, you start picking his brain even more and you start realizing, man, dang, he's really sharp. Every day from when I first started coach or even from playing to coaching, every day I'm feeling like I'm taking little nuggets from him, that he's an extremely great teacher in football, not just linebacker, but football, dumbing things down, making the complex simple for guys. And he's even really good at that, even for coaches as well.
What is Grant's skill set going to add to your room?
Oh, Grant. I remember when I watched him as a free agent, and I'm like, man, this guy right here, man, you turn on the tape, you talking about he's all over the field, the fiery guy, tough, competitive, fast, run and hit. He's going to bring great competition to the room. He can play man coverage. I'll say the biggest thing is he fits us. He's what we're looking for from his personality to the style he plays. He's for sure fits everything that Shep is looking for and for sure everything Dan's looking for.
Just wondering if you could provide a little, insider look at the last 12 months of Derek Barnes' career, Going into last year, he had that Sam linebacker role. It seemed like he was destined for a big role. Obviously, the injury happens, but then, he gets a big contract this offseason. Just what has he meant to the room? What has that kind of journey been like for him?
I'm very unfortunate that the injury happened. And, sometimes that we don't know why things happen, but as bad as the injury was, I think a lot of good came out of that. I think, as you can see, over the years, D. Barnes has progressed year in. Okay, now, they that injury sent him down, allowed him to, okay, sit back and be even more of a student of the game. And now, okay, you fast forward now, and it's year 5. And, okay, now you watch film and stuff like that with him. Okay, maybe things that he didn't see last year, okay, he's seeing it because he's had that time to, okay, with that time, he maximized it. You know, he wasn't just sitting on the couch feeling sorry for himself. You know, so he's had a chance to really mature. And I think that this year is going to be a good season for him, and he's going to take his game to the next level. I mean, it's credit to him for being a student of the game and maximizing the time when he wasn't able to be on the field.
David, you served multiple roles, not just here, but elsewhere. Can you just kind of explain to us how that's evolved, what you're going to be doing this year that's maybe a little bit different than the past, if at all?
I think it's going to be a little bit more involved in the general game plan, you know, taking kind of like how I supported Shep and did some things with Shep in the linebacker room and kind of hopefully expand that to fit the rest of the whole defense. You know, still going to be doing some of the OLB stuff with Ham as well. But in terms of just the larger big picture, kind of focusing more on supporting Shep and being a voice for him to bounce things off of and kind of help him put together the vision of what he wants the defense to look like.
How have you seen him grow into this new role now?
I'm sorry?
How have you seen Shep grow into this new role here as you?
How have I seen it? I mean, I've known, you know, you go back, he and I, you guys know, we go all the way back 2014 when he was a player for us in Miami, and you see him even back then walk in the door. There's a leadership quality. There's an approach, a professionalism to how he comes to the job. And that kind of rubs off on the other guys around him. We saw it again when he came here in 2018, right? Coming in as a role, wound up starting a couple games, maybe a game or two for us. I remember we went out to Arizona and he played exceptional football for us. And I think that's kind of, how do I say that, kind of bled over into how he coaches, right? You guys seen how the linebackers room is run the last couple years, the intensity, the demands, the detail, and I think now we're going to hopefully, you know, what we're going to see is that's going to spread to the whole defense. And you just, when you're around him, you know, he has that quality that the guys gravitate to. And I think the players are going to go perform for him as well.
You just mentioned the intensity from AG now to Shep. I guess what are the biggest benefits to a defensive coordinator coming to work every day with that type of mindset?
Well, first of all, I want to say like how grateful I am for having had the opportunity to be with AG for 4 years. That you talk about an outstanding leader for the players, an outstanding coach for somebody like me, who obviously, you know, I didn't play pro football, but to see and learn from a guy like Aaron Glenn, the perspective he brings, the intensity, the game day, the management of the players, the organization of the coaches, and what a great example that is for, I think, Shep to follow. Now, the thing about it is, we have a structure in place, right? We're probably not going to change anything dramatic. We've got players that are in their 3rd, 4th year. But that's a great thing about football is no two people see the game the same way, right? So the perspective and the vision that Aaron Glenn had will be different than what Kelvin Shepard has. Kelvin Shep's going to bring his version of how he wants it to look, and we'll find out about that as it unfolds. You know, we haven't even lined up with pads on yet, so we really don't even know what we are. But that's going to be the fun part of this process is watching a new guy grow into putting forth a vision and getting all of us coaches and players to go execute it for him.
You look back at that 2014 Dolphins team. Is there anything surreal about now coaching for a team where Campbell's the head coach and Shep is the DC?
Well, I mean, Ben Johnson was one of our offensive assistants, you know. You go back a couple years before that, Dave Phipp was our assistant special teams coordinator. You know, the volume of guys that came through that building all those years ago, you know, you look around the league, there's a lot of high-level coaches in a lot of high-level positions, you know, that, you know, me, I've been fortunate enough to be with these guys that I've tried to learn as much as I can and help them any way I can to help our team win games.
You've been around some really great players in your career, from, you know, Willis in college to Wake to Taylor. I mean, coaching these Hall of Fame, All-Pro caliber players, you know, how has that helped you think, as a coach?
Well, I think what you learn is the great ones want to be coached, right? If you have a player out there that doesn't like coaching and doesn't take coaching, I think that really limits their upside. But you also have to understand how to coach them. They're not all coached the same way, you know, because you get them at different parts or different places in their career. I was very lucky to work with Patrick Willis when he was a young, impressionable college linebacker. What a great experience that was for me as a young coach to learn how to coach a player like that while he's still learning how to play football. Fast forward a number of years, I'm in the assistant linebacker coach at Miami, and all of a sudden Jason Taylor's in the room, and you got to be careful. Like you coach him differently. What am I going to do? Oh, here's what you did wrong on the first 130 sacks of your career. Like, I mean, come on. Like, so these guys have a certain built-in level of they've earned some respect from you as a coach that you got to work with them. You're not coaching at them. You're listening to their levels of input, and then you kind of help them through maneuvering how they want to continue to get better. And so, like, to me, the biggest thing that I've learned is you got to coach them all. You got to coach them hard, and you want to do whatever you can to help them get better. Because if that's what they believe, players will do whatever you ask. If they believe what you're coaching is going to help them get better, they will absolutely go perform at the level you ask them to.
Since you still will have a hand with the outside backers a little bit, Derek Barnes, what do you think of kind of the way he started last season? How confident are you that he can just pick up coming off that injury where he was out this year?
Well, I think with every season, we start over every year. Like the idea that you just pick right up where you left off, I don't think that's like every team, every staff, every roster, you got to go back to square one and build from the ground up. And I think that's the good thing for us with Derek. It's an absolute shame we didn't get to see him on that trajectory, because I thought the role that we have carved out for him is a very unique position where he's on the ball, off the ball, he's pressure, he's coverage. He's a very versatile, explosive player, and I'm excited to see that continue on past 4 games. I think we all got robbed of that, and I think that's going to be a very exciting thing to watch unfold over the course of the season.
Building on that a little bit, it seemed like during training camp finding a suitable backup for Derek was a challenge. You cycled through a lot of guys there, and maybe even went into the season and didn't really have the solution. Trevor ended up filling it a lot late in the season, but no snaps before that. Why is that position that so challenging in this defense? And do you think you guys are better equipped to find that solution behind Derek this year?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily you're looking for something behind Derek, right? We're trying to put the best 11 guys we have in any situation, and then within the structure of what we do defensively, we got to let those players be in spots where we accentuate what they're good at. Good English right there too, by the way, right? And so the role that Sam linebacker has is, you see it on the game film, right? He's stacked off the ball. He's on the end of the line of scrimmage. He's walked out in the slot. That's a lot of different jobs for one player to handle, and it's a very unique position to play. So therefore, in my opinion, that's a hard position for us to fill with one player. That makes sense? And so the idea that you're going to have a player as unique as Derek Barnes is, with his ability on the edge, his ability to pressure up the middle, his ability to drop in coverage, the idea that you would have a second player with that level of skill set sitting behind somebody on the depth chart, I don't see how that realistic that is. That somebody with that level of skill set, you're going to want on the field as much as you can. That's not we got to have a true backup. We work with the players that we have, and we figure out what they're good at, and that's what we do with them.
With Kacy Rodgers in Miami, what kind of coach is he, and what does he bring to the staff?
Kacy, in my opinion, is as an elite D-line coach as there is. We've been fortunate enough the last 2 years here to have what, in my opinion, are the 2 best D-line coaches in this league. And that's just those, because those are the guys that I know well, and the level of detail, you can already see it with the meetings and stuff that we've been doing. I think his track record speaks for itself. He was very influential on me when I first came to the NFL in 2008. He was the D-line coach that I worked with for 7 years. So a lot of what I know and what I see and what I think I'm going to see from D-line is based on what Kacy has taught me over the years as a coach. So when I see it put in practice with our players and the details, the alignments, the adjustments, the way those guys play, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Shep and AG seeing things through different lenses, which makes perfect sense. I'm curious about your lens. You had the 3-4 year stretch in director of football research, a little bit of a mysterious title on our end. But I mean, do you have a different way you see the game? Do you have an appreciation for analytics that maybe is a little bit more deeper than some coaches? Like, what is your lens, and how does it maybe differ from some other guys in your profession?
I guess my lens is, how do I say this? My lens is about coordination, right? X's and O's, you know, it's about players, not the scheme. But to me, there's a level of what you're coaching on the D line has to be coordinated with what you're coaching at the linebacker position, which has to be coordinated with what you're coaching in the secondary. And whether you want to be a 3-4 or 4-3, wide 9, whatever you want to call it, to me, that stuff's irrelevant. Is my perspective, and what I try to look at is what we're doing coordinated. And when it is, and you've coached your players and you've got good players and those guys go out and play hard, that's typically when a defense works, right? If you have talent deficiencies, okay, that's one thing. But if you're not coordinated, if your D-line are playing a certain way and it doesn't match with what your linebackers are doing, chances are there's going to be some disconnect and you might not perform as well. As far as like analytics and that stuff, like, I mean, we've been doing that for forever and a day, right? We used to call it tendencies. It's like, I think you guys talked about it a long time ago. So that's kind of a week by week thing, because everybody we play, every offensive coordinator we play has different things that they do, calls that they make in certain situations. So I don't really have like a general view of that. My view is, are we putting our players in position to succeed, and is what we're coaching coordinated at all levels of the defense?
When do you know that it's coordinated? Like, what signs do you look for in your defense to know that? Is there a game last season you can point to that illustrates perfect coordination in your eyes?
No, it's not about like this game with this play. It's how do things unfold, right? When you have a successful play, when you go look at, right, we just spent the first 2 months of the offseason watching every play. We look at what we did on the film, and when it's successful, we're trying to identify this is why it was successful. Look, we coached this guy to do this guy to do that, and that's why we did it. When a play isn't successful, we have to identify why wasn't it successful. Is it because what we coached this guy to do is in conflict? We found a way that might be in conflict with that guy. I don't know that there's a specific point where you ever say, okay, we've got it all figured out. Everything's coordinated from front to back. It's a constant evolutionary process.
David, you mentioned felt like you were robbed from seeing what Derek could do last season. He was obviously just one of the first dominoes to fall in a long, frustrating injury season. You guys still won 15 games, but is there a sense that the defense as a whole was robbed from maybe hitting its peak just because of the attrition, and maybe there's something to prove this year?
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is injuries are injuries. Like, it's not something we can control, and it's, you guys saw us go through the lecture. Next man up, nobody's going to feel sorry for us. Everybody's going to smell blood in the water and try and come after us. So we just got to, each week, you got to figure out, okay, who do we have? Who's healthy? What can we do? And let's go out there and perform. But to sit there and say, you give a second thought about, oh, this guy's hurt, that guy, we don't have time for that. Like, next guy, let's go. This is the National Football League. Everybody's trying to knock everybody else off, and nobody's going to feel sorry for it if you got injuries.
Do you think dealing with that made you a better coach or better coaching staff?
I think so. I think it forces us to understand who we're coaching, what we're coaching, who we're putting in what position to do what. The things, okay, we lose this guy. Well, the guy coming in behind him might be able to have a different set of skills. So let's see what we can do to help him. It forces us to kind of be more flexible as coaches and be less rigid.